Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story TV and the Her Story podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Hi everyone, my name's Sally Ann Twist and I'm based on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria and I am 49 years of age. So my story, I suppose my first pivotal moment was when my parents divorced when I was 6 years of age. So my brother, my sister and I obviously stayed with my mum and it sort of began from there. So basically, I feel like now that I'm a little bit older and I understand my mother a lot more, I feel like my mother probably wished that she didn't have the burden of children on her shoulders. I think she was a woman that if she had have lived now in this day and age, she probably wouldn't have had children. So basically, after the separation of my father, my mother, I think, was basically trying to find herself. So she was in and out of a lot of toxic relationships. A lot of them were surrounded around drugs. It was mainly the drug marijuana. And the men that were in and out of our household were a lot younger than her. So there were 22-year-old boys basically that were in and out of the house living with us, and it sort of went from there. So she finally found a man that was 26 and she moved us all over to Western Australia when I was in grade 6, sorry. So in that pivotal time of just about to move with all my friends to high school, we were based in Williamstown and we moved all the way over to Western Australia. And that really is when things started to fall apart for myself, my sister and my brother. There was a lot of drugs going on there. They had started a marijuana plantation down south, sort of near Margaret River. And everything sort of just exploded for my brother, my sister and myself. We weren't really seeing our father that much at that time because he was back in Melbourne and he had also then married and was sort of starting a new life with her. So the whole breakdown of what we knew had gone, and our mother pretty much had gone. Like it was all about partying and things like that. So we were there for probably 2 years and he then obviously had an affair. And mum pretty much had a breakdown, wouldn't get out of bed, wouldn't go to work. And we then had to move everything back to Melbourne, which my brother and my sister and I were very happy about. So we all sort of went back into our lives. We went to the local high school. We plugged back into all our friends that we had from Williamstown before. And things were sort of going okay. And mum sort of became a little bit more stable but I feel again she just had always had this feeling of wanting more for herself, and there were always men involved. So there were more men that came in and out, and the marijuana was a constant in her life. And so that sort of surrounded us for our whole lives. And she would sort of leave us like for weekends on end, like leave on a Friday night, come back on a Monday. If it hadn't have worked out with the guy that she'd been away with, she would then take it out on us. So it was always this tug of war of when she was happy or when she was sad. So there was a lot of ups and downs with us growing up with her. And now in hindsight, as I am older and I have my own daughter, I can see that there was mental illness with her, and just a sense of unease in her that she never found, I think, what she was looking for, basically. So we all pretty much, my brother, sister and I, left home at a very young age to leave the house. I went overseas for 4 years and lived in Scotland, which I absolutely loved. I loved that I didn't have the connection with my family and the toxicity and the dramas, because there was always a drama every week when we were all a part of the family unit. So it was so liberating and free to be able to just be myself, not have to look after the family, and basically earn my own money, not have to give it away to my mum or my brothers and sisters or anything like that. It was just all about me. And I think that is when I did start to find who I was as a person and start to, I suppose, a little bit start to gain self-worth back of who I was. Alcohol, though, has played a very bad part in my life from my younger part. I always, now looking back, had social anxiety, so I would always drink before I went out. So I would always end up being the drunkest person at the party or out. And there was definitely a lot of self-sabotage along the way. I put myself in a lot of bad situations. And now, as I get older, alcohol is something that I'm looking into myself and the relationship that I have with it. I have a way better relationship now than I did in my 20s, 30s, and probably early 40s. But yeah, that definitely is still a work in progress. I am hoping to completely not drink alcohol. So yeah, as I said, that's a work in progress. Because I do love Pinot Noir. So I suppose the other thing is the toxic relationships that I let enter my life. I've only had 2 major ones, and they were both violent. The second one, although violent and toxic, produced my daughter, who is now a beautiful 13-year-old and just thriving and striving, and is so much stronger and so much surer of herself than I ever was at 13. And that makes me really proud and yeah, a little bit sad, I think, sometimes, because I see her milestones of her age as she's grown, and I remember what was happening for me at those age groups or those times. And yeah, I just it's a not hard battle, but it's a to and fro from me when I see maybe how I could have not had so many things to cross in my life if maybe things had have been a lot more stable, I suppose, and maybe not chosen the people in my life that were so toxic and violent. So I have been on my own now for 12 years. So pretty much I split up with Piper's father when she was 6 weeks old. He was strangling me while I was breastfeeding her. And I thought, what the hell am I doing? And something came over me when he was doing that, and I put her down, and this guttural like noise that I have never heard before came out of me. And I just basically said to him, I am a lioness, and if you don't get the F out, I am going to kill you. And he saw something in me, and I felt something in myself, and he left. And that is where the true building of myself has come from, and the strength. And as I move into my 50th year, it truly is something that I am really looking forward to. I feel so strong. I am loving myself like I don't think I ever have before, and have just recently changed jobs. I've been in hospitality for 35 years of my life, and I knew that I needed some more security for me and for my daughter, and also just some calmness for my body. So I was applying for jobs that knew had that sort of security, and I landed myself a job at Services Australia at Centrelink, and that was 9 months ago, and I cannot tell you, it has changed my life. First of all, I get 3 breaks a day. So 2 cup of tea breaks and 1 lunch break, which I have never had in my whole entire life working in hospitality. And I still get to help people and be with people, but actually, help people that need it. And there's a lot of my friends that sort of like, oh, do you think that you're going to be able to deal with it? But I feel like I am a great person to be around people that are vulnerable or in hardship or struggling, because, it only takes one person in your life to make you believe that you can do things. And after I threw out Piper's father, I got a tattoo on my arm, and it says, "This time too shall pass." And it absolutely is true. Like, I think that also good times pass, and so we need to remember to really cherish and hold on to those really happy and amazing times that we have with the people that nurture us and fill our cups and make us like glow. And I really am learning to move towards those people more and to move away from people that don't. And Maya Angelou had a really good quote. It was about coats in your cupboard, and that if you haven't worn that coat for a long time, it's stopping you from bringing a better coat in. And I really believe in that with people, that, sometimes we keep a lot of people in our cupboards just like jackets that we never wear or we don't like, or that have been there for so long that we just don't want to let them go. And that is actually stopping us from bringing in people that really do love us and celebrate us with all our chinks and, our idiosyncrasies. Like, I'm quite loud and I laugh, and there's been a lot of people in my life that shush me when I'm out at a restaurant or something like that. So there's not many people now in my life that shush me anymore, because they celebrate that and they celebrate who I am. And it has taken a long time for me to learn those lessons, but coming up to 50, I just am loving it. I'm loving life. I'm loving seeing my daughter just grow. She is, an amazing football player, and watching her play AFL and just the joy it gives me to see all women and young women thriving like that and playing a sport like that and seeing, sports people that are women. And I think that someone said it not long ago on the TV that, isn't it amazing now that young girls of 5 and 6 are watching Sam Kerr and the only thing they know is strong female women in sports that are on TV. And we didn't have that. And I thought that is so unbelievably true, that finally we've got young little girls watching sport on TV that have always been male dominated that are now being played by women. And that just makes me also so happy and so exhilarated to see how women are just going to rule the world.
I love that. Well, Sally Ann, it sounds to me like your formative life experiences have led you to this job that you have right now. Everything that you went through has led you to take on this role.
100%.
Incredible. So let's unpack your story a little bit. You talked about your use and your relationship with alcohol. Take me back to how that started, what it did for you, and what you would do differently based on what it has taught you up to this point.
It basically happened at a really young age, so 14. Started drinking with friends around Williamstown on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and just basically obliterating myself, to the point where I couldn't stand up. And that lasted a really, really long time in my life. Hospitality, was probably a really good job to have, I think, if you've got an alcoholic problem, because it's just so socially acceptable in hospitality to drink till 4 a.m. and then get up the next day and work and then do it all again. So it was sort of probably the reason why I stayed in hospitality for so long, if I really think about it in a broader term of the way that my drinking was. Definitely, as I've gotten older, I have realised that it was a social anxiety thing, and I don't know whether that came from the stuff that happened with mum and dad. I don't, now moving forward, I don't blame my mother and father for, my younger years. That's another thing that I've let go of. My mother now has had early onset Alzheimer's, and we put her in a home 5 years ago. What I've learned, especially about my mother, is that, sometimes we get put into things from a young age that maybe we don't want to do. So my alcohol problem I don't think came from them. I just think came from that I was wanting to find something. And for me, it wasn't ever drugs, it was alcohol. There were really dark times with my alcohol, especially straight after Piper. I remember maybe sometimes having 2 bottles a night, because I was just sort of similar to you, Gertrude, that I was in a really bad place. I had to sell my unit because Piper's father had put me in so much debt from gambling and drugs himself. I was going to the Salvation Army. I was doing things with the customers that I see now, going to the food banks and things like that just to be able to survive. I was probably really lucky that I had something to sell, but alcohol was still there. It seemed like every time something went wrong, I would turn to alcohol, and then obviously things would just get worse. But now, as my relationship is getting a lot healthier with alcohol, obviously things, exactly what you said, Gertrude, this Services Australia job has come at just the right time, but also probably it is 100% the right time, because maybe 10 years ago I wouldn't have been good at that job. I wouldn't have had the strength of who I am now.
It's really
Yeah.
interesting. They say that the universe will never give you challenges you cannot overcome. And when you've overcome them, you have to become a teacher. You have learned so much, and now you can impart that knowledge to someone else. Again, going back a few steps, what kind of resources are out there now for somebody who could be in a similar position? What can be done to alleviate the stress, the situation you're in, so you don't go down that slippery path?
I think for me, there are a lot of telltale signs of when I know that things are slipping for me. I pick the skin around my nails when I'm stressed, and that started obviously when I was younger. I always remember just all my nails always being bleeding and sore. Um, so when a finger is started, when I start to pick a finger, then I stop myself and I evaluate what's going on. And the first thing that I eliminate is alcohol in that time. So I go, okay, something's going on. All right, I won't have a Pinot Noir on the couch on Friday night. I've got to work out why this picking has started. There are definitely tools now that I use. I used to sleep in until like 11 o'clock, you know, on the weekend, because I used to think, well, I deserve that. You know, I deserve to be able to sleep until 11:30, but it wasn't really that I was deserving it. It was that I had probably had, you know, too many Pinot Noirs on the couch on the Friday night before. So I don't do that anymore. I might have 2 glasses of wine, go to bed, get up, walk the dog, you know, do something with Piper, whatever. So when I see myself doing that as well, like maybe not getting out of bed on a weekend till quite late, I then reconnect myself as well. That's taken me a long time to realise, but I think it's having the right people, Gertrude, in your life. And like I said, like letting other people go. It's really hard to let people go that have been in your life for a really long time, especially friends. But sometimes those friends don't want you to grow. Sometimes those friends want you to stay the drunkest person at the party. Sometimes those people want you to be the loudest person so that the reflection isn't put on them. And that's what I've learned. It's taken me a long time to learn that. But I have learned that, you know, they really only want you there so that they can get drunk, but you're going to be the drunkest one there and no one will be talking about them because they'll be talking about you. Or I always had, you know, so much drama in my life. So all the conversations are about stuff with my family. So you don't ever really ask those people what's going on with their family. But there are a lot of dramas in their lives too. But it's because I was also such an oversharer. And I've spoken to Piper about that a lot of times as she's grown up, to explain to her that sometimes oversharing, especially in a friend group, is not good. And that you only share when someone shares for you. Those moments that you tell people in a sense of when you're at your lowest sometimes can be used against you. And I'm sure you've probably seen that, Gertrude, in your time as well. I've learned also as I've gotten older to not tell people as much. Of course, still be true to myself and be the person that I am, but not divulge as much so that it can not come back to hurt me in any way.
Yeah, you're very right. You have to be so wary and so careful as to who you are confiding in. I learned that the hard way. So now going forwards, how did you break your addiction to alcohol? You said you went into rehab. How did you do it naturally? How difficult was that for you?
Yeah, so I didn't go into rehab. I think to be honest, it was COVID. And everyone sort of has a story about COVID. I bloody loved COVID. I cannot tell you. Like, as soon as the restaurant got closed down, I was like, yes. A lot of people were ringing me and worrying about me, but, you know, probably the same as you, Gertrude, when you're a doer and, you know, there's been struggles in your life. I had a job the next day at the local supermarket because I wasn't waiting for anyone to tell me what was happening. So I went and got a job 3 days a week at a supermarket. And on the day of that first COVID shutdown of the restaurant, I made the decision to not drink for the whole 3 months of COVID, which I did. And I had a routine, and I got up and I went for a 3-hour walk, and I listened to lots of podcasts, which I had never done before. I'd never listened to a podcast before. So I listened to all types of podcasts, lots of crimes, lots of things happening with like school systems in America, and then you just go down the rabbit hole. So I came out of that and I was a lot stronger, I think, mentally. And I think really COVID was the time when I started to really look at the relationship that I had with alcohol, and that I wanted to change it, which I have completely changed it now. So then the second COVID that shut down, straight away, no alcohol. So innately in myself, I know that I can do it. I think the thing that I struggle with is that I just do love the feeling of going out for a nice meal and having a really nice glass of red. And so that is still like a struggle for me. But I also choose parties. If I'm going to a party, I'm like, no, I'm not going to drink at that party. And I would never have done that. Last New Year's Eve, I didn't drink, and I would never have done that in a million years. So yeah, there's small changes, but the complete getting off no alcohol is it's like a, I don't know, it's like a seesaw for me at the moment.
It is a bit of a dance, but it sounds like you're well on the way there. Let me take you into the future. You're going to have a little thought experiment.
Yeah.
You are now 90 years old and you're sitting on your porch, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your dogs, your cat.
Hopefully.
And if the younger you could teleport into the future to have a conversation with this wise woman who's led you to that point, based on what you've learned and how you're living your life, what would you say to this wise woman?
That you are stronger and smarter than what you think you are. I became a youth worker in my 30s. I'd have 2 days off at hospitality, and I became a volunteer youth worker as a mentor. And there was a very pivotal pathway for me at that stage. There was my manager who was running a program, and he offered me basically like an assistant manager's role. And I didn't take that. And I think for my younger self, I would say, yeah, go for things. I didn't believe in myself enough in my younger years, to be honest, but I do now.
I love asking that question because you're right. You know, as women, we don't realize that we have the answers to all of our problems. We are wiser than we think we are. And when you have a prompting or an opportunity, just trust yourself and go for it.
Yes.
If you don't know, you learn while you're on the job. But a lot of times we hold back, right?
Yeah.
And we doubt ourselves, we second guess ourselves.
100%. And having this Service Australia job, anyone that knows me knows that I am so bad at computers. But my manager was so lovely when I first started there. And she said to me, Sally, I can teach you computers all day long. And she said, what you have with the people, you know, you can't go to school for that. So don't worry about the computers. She said, you just worry about what you have and what you bring. And I think, Gertrude, now, especially being in Service Australia, that has given me what I needed in myself, even, you know, to push me even more. Yes. Because I truly do think I do bring something there now. And, you know, even one of my colleagues yesterday, it was so funny. He said, Sally, far out, it's been 10 months. I thought that laugh would be gone by now. And I was like, no, I love this job. I love it. Like, I love it. I love it. I love, you know, I love the people. I love hearing their stories. And because that's life, isn't it? And we've all had to use Centrelink at some stage. And that's what I say to people. Like, I tell them my story when, especially women, I've found, Gertrude, and women of a certain age, probably past my years, like, they're so staunch and strong and they don't want to ask for help. And there's women living in their cars and they're coming in and they're trying to find jobs, and I'm trying to give them all the pieces of paper for the free food and everything, and they're crying because they just don't want people to know that they're struggling, because they want to keep this facade up. And I tell them off. I go, listen, you've worked your whole life. You are a strong woman. Go and get some fresh fruit and vegetables from around the corner, please. But there is something about women, I think, that we just try and push on,
Yeah, we don't know how to allow ourselves to be vulnerable and get the help that's out there. So what are your parting thoughts for us this morning, Sally?
This is another little bit of sprinkling of sugar. This has just made me, when you asked me to do this podcast with you, I think it's just another little sprinkle to my path. It's like the yellow brick road. The yellow brick road's there.
Yeah, I love that. That is just awesome. Beautiful way to end our podcast. Thank you so much, Sally Ann, for coming online today and gracing us with your presence and your amazing story. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in. The Her Story Circle is attracting some phenomenal women who are not only changing their lives, but the lives of others as well. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview another person. Have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And thanks again, Sally. I really appreciate this interview.
Thank you so much, Gertrude. It's been amazing.
Bye for now, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates, and join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time,